We're going live, and we're live. The beginning of every live stream is, are we live? Are we live? But I think we're actually live. All right, so.
This is waiting for school motion.
I first want to just thank everybody who is watching this right now. And we're live. I should probably mute this too. There we go. So I don't mute myself. So I want to thank everyone that is on the live stream right now watching this. I really appreciate you taking any time out of your day to hang out with us and to, think about what's going on in the industry and sort of work through this with us. This is our first public live stream in a really long time. And so I'd like to say hello to my compatriots, EJ Hassenfratz, Ryan Summers, who are going to be helping me out on this live stream. And we've also got 5 really awesome artists from all over the world who have agreed to come on and sort of talk about their experiences. So I'm gonna introduce them really soon. So really quickly, I wanted to just sort of share some thoughts with everyone watching on what's going on. And one thing that I'm consciously trying to avoid doing is trying to give you advice on how to get through this. There's plenty of people that have like really good advice about, how to structure your finances for things like this. I don't really have any of that for you, but what I am going to try to do is just be honest with you. And everyone on this live stream, we've talked about it before. We're going to be really, really honest because I think right now that's what's the most helpful, is to just stop bottling up the anxiety we're all feeling and to just let it out and talk about it. So what I'm going to do is encourage everyone in the chat to sort of share your stories as we're sharing ours. Just get the poison out, and it's pretty amazing how much better it can actually make you feel. So I've been reaching out to studio owners and freelancers and friends of School Motion, people we've had on the podcast for the past couple of weeks, just checking in on people. And every single person has felt some impact, some really pretty profound. There are studio owners that are very nervous, like that if business doesn't come back at some point, they may have to lay off staff. Obviously, freelancers are really nervous and people on staff are nervous. And so I say all that because I want you to think about that whenever you're interacting with someone in the industry right now. They are probably not their best self right now. And your colleagues, your coworkers, your employees, your clients are all feeling this. And so just consider that, because now that we're all doing this only online, you lose body language, you lose a lot of the nonverbal cues, and it's not very easy to tell how someone's actually doing unless you ask and they tell you honestly. School Motion has definitely felt impacts from this, and that's been really stressful for me, but luckily we're going to be fine. We're actually doing fine. But one of the great things has been our teams come together over the last couple of weeks to really come together and figure out what we can do to be a positive force in the industry during this. And so I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But I wanted to call out some things I've seen in the industry that are just like really awesome and sort of prove to me why our industry is so amazing, because immediately everyone started trying to jump in and to help and make things better in any way they can. Maxon and Red Giant, they have announced they're doing a virtual NAB live stream. So that will be on c4dlive.com. And you'll be able to, watch basically what you would have seen at the NAB booth, but live, over the internet. It'd be really cool. Mograph.com, those gentlemen did a live stream yesterday and they raised thousands of dollars to donate to Doctors Without Borders, which is awesome. And I wanted to applaud those guys for doing that. I just got an email from Grayscale Gorilla that they are extending their student discount out for another couple of months, I think, to try and help people, afford education during this time when you're stuck at home and you have free time to do it. Lots of companies are doing stuff like that. And so we've been thinking about ways that we can join in and help our community. So I am very proud to announce that starting today, we are launching a scholarship program. And you can go to the URL som.bz/scholarship. And someone from School Motion will be posting it in the YouTube chat. So you'll just be able to click that. All the information is there. Our goal is to give 100 seats in our classes for this upcoming session. So if you've been impacted by this pandemic and you're hard up for cash, I totally get it. And this is just a small way that we can try to help. and help some of the artists kind of get through this in a productive way. So I'm really proud of that. I want to give a shout out to Brittany on our team who spearheaded this, and I think it's going to be really awesome. So I would like to now turn the floor over briefly to EJ and Ryan so that they can share some of their thoughts too. So Hand or Pants, what is on your mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is very therapeutic. Everyone doing live streams. I hopped on the mograph.com one yesterday, and I think that's the thing that I'm seeing throughout all of this is, the news shapes up different every single day. There's something new to be freaking out about. Are we going to die for the Dow? Like all these things that are going on, and it is crazy. But one of the things that has helped me get through this and stop from being so overwhelmed all the time is to focus on all the positive things that are happening, that people are coming together, and that is incredible. When things get dark, it's that light that gets even brighter. Someone probably said that way more eloquently than I just did, but I mean, it's very true, that saying, because you just start seeing all this light in all these different places, and it's really inspiring. So I'm really excited for School Motion to be doing all these, giving away all these courses. I'm so proud that we're doing that. Proud to be part of this team, proud to be a part of this community, because man, I already knew that this community was amazing before, but like, wow, it's really showing, everyone's showing up in big ways. And that's really awesome to see.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Summers, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I feel the same. I mean, I'm one of the newest to School of Motion, so I feel like I'm really close to a lot of the people that were working at studios, or especially people that might have just made the decision to go freelance. Like the last couple of weeks have been a little overwhelming with people reaching out, like names you wouldn't expect reaching out, wondering if there's work or where there's work, or do they need to move somewhere or fly somewhere. So it's on the top of my mind every single day. I mean, I think the big thing for me is just kind of like self-care and trying to think of the people that around you as well. Like we've seen something like Zoom really being useful within the company, but I also feel like relying on like Slack or email or even like text messages, sometimes just having the rapport of checking in with somebody every couple of days. We had it even internally on our own team where everybody thought they were okay. And once we started talking, we noticed a couple of people really kind of feeling it more, just because we can see each other and you can hear each other's voice. So that's the really big thing I'm stressing just in the short term, is there's no magic bullet for where the work is at. I don't know where the safe harbors are right now. Like I'm asking around all the time, like, are sports teams taking this seriously? Are, anybody working in like the convention field or the music field? They're just getting destroyed right now. Like, is there comparable work somewhere else? I have a lot of friends in the experiential field, and that's just getting, kind of gutted. So really, more than anything in the short term, like just keeping the same way we always do, but really even more so like keeping an eye on each other and just having an ear for each other, even if it's just one-on-one or it's over like FaceTime. Like that's been really, really beneficial for us as we're just trying to figure out where to go next.
Well said, man. All right, well, now I would like to introduce the 5 artists that have joined us from all over the planet. And why don't we do this? We'll go one at a time. And when I call out your name, just introduce yourself, tell everybody where you are physically, where you're living, and what your employment situation is. Are you full-time? Are you freelance? Do you run a business? And you can talk a little bit about how you've been affected by that. And why don't we start with Aljanan Kwashian?
Hey, everyone. My name is Aljanan. I live in Brooklyn right now with my wife and daughter, and I am full-time freelance. And I primarily work from home. Sometimes I go into places, but mostly I'm home. And yeah, I mean, it's definitely affected me. I work with like a lot of music places, and as soon as like South by went down, I was like, yeah, this is gonna this is gonna hurt a little bit. So all like my usual music places that contact me, they're all kind of on hiatus right now. So we'll see where that goes. Yeah.
Yep, I hear you, man. Jess, you can go next.
Hi, I'm Jess. I'm in Australia at the moment. I went freelance at the start of the year, and I was actually living in London, and I had to make the huge move back to Australia just because I didn't really know what was going on. It was a bit scary living on my own as well. I was working a lot in-house in London, and now currently remotely working for the next 2 weeks, and then hopefully don't go broke, but I'm living with my parents, so it's all right. But yeah, that's my situation.
So hopefully your parents don't go broke.
Yeah, well, my dad has been put down to only 2 days a week now, so that's a bit worrisome. And my mum doesn't work, so yeah, they're a bit worried.
Yeah, understandably. Steve Savali, you're up next.
Hey everybody, I'm Steve Savali. I'm up here in the Michigan area, and I am a full-time freelance artist. I work out of my home studio, so the working remote thing is something I'm already pretty comfortable with, talking with people. But I will say, like, obviously it affects everybody. I do see a huge ripple effect, and Joey even brought it up earlier. You see how it affects the people around you the most. And I think that that can be what weighs the most heavy on my business and my side, because you have to keep a sense of calmness about everything the best that you possibly can. As people panic, as people get nervous and scared, and rightfully so, it can start to amplify. So trying to figure out a way of, hey, how can we all kind of work together and say, hey, yeah, this does suck, but it's gonna end, it's gonna get better. And I think talks like this and School Motion putting this on really helps everybody out a little bit more than we think it will.
Right on. Chris Buer, you can go next. Chris
He's
Buer.
on mute.
Oh, you're mute. There we go.
Sorry about that. So, Chris here. I'm in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, so pretty much the middle of the country. My situation is I've been freelance for about 1.5 years. I also do some adjunct teaching at a local tech school. And then I have one client that I do kind of like a permalance basis, anywhere from maybe like 2 hours to 20 at the peak. So I kind of got my hand in a couple different areas to try to prevent, trying to minimize the impact, I guess, of something like this happening. Because I was freelancing when the 2008 crash happened, and I was just freelancing at the time. So tried to, get a couple different buckets going. So.
Gotcha. All right. And then last, all the way from Spain, we have Van Velvet.
Hello, I'm Van Velvet. Well, yeah, I'm living in Barcelona and it's pretty crazy here right now. Well, I've been freelancing for the last 3 years, I say right now. I've been moving from being a freelancer, like working with studios and stuff, like trying to create my own remote studio. I love working from home. I like to move to a studio, but still work remotely with wherever all around the globe. These days, there is not a big difference in that for me because I'm at home all the time for work, but we are all the family at home right now. So that's crazy, because my time is not my time. My work time is not my work time right now. It's more like my family time, and we need to share these hours. So it's crazy, but well, we are trying to do it, staying positive, but it's been really hard.
Yeah, the struggle is real. Like everyone can see that. So this is my home office, and my wife is trying desperately to keep my children quiet while we do this. And so there's like basically every aspect of life has been disrupted by this. And one of the things that it's really interesting, talking with all of you is, as far as our careers go, those are impacted sometimes in subtle ways. A lot of us, if we're freelancers, we're working remotely already. And maybe we have bookings that are continuing. And so that side of things hasn't changed so much, but our home life might be completely disrupted. Maybe our partner has been laid off. Our parents could be dealing with really stressful things. Our children are now pulled out of school. And so those are the things that I think as an industry, we don't really talk about that often, that really, really affect us, sometimes even way more than things that are happening to us in our own career. So one of the things that we started doing 2 weeks ago at School Motion is this exercise. And this is a very un-Joey thing. I generally am skeptical about this kind of stuff. But I was persuaded by my business coach to try this with our team. And I was really blown away by how effective it was and how much better everyone felt after we did it. So what I want to do is do this exercise with the 8 people on this call right now. And everybody, you person in YouTube, I want you to do this in the chat. And it's okay, you can just type something out and just send it out. People don't have to respond to it. It doesn't matter. It's not about having someone respond to it. It's about you getting it out of yourself, and you'll feel better. So I encourage everyone to try it. Just try it in the chat and let us know what you think. So I'll go first. The exercise is called red, yellow, green. And the way it works is you start by saying what color you feel like. So this is the woo-woo part. So if you're green, that means everything's fine and there's really nothing bad happening to you right now. If you're yellow, you're not okay. Something's really stressing you out, but you're not in total panic mode. And if you're red, you are basically fully engaged with your anxiety. And you can be shades of colors in between. And then you just briefly explain why. Okay, so I'll go first. So today, I would say I am yellow with maybe one leg on the green side. So I'm on the green side instead of the red side because I'm really encouraged by the response I'm already seeing to this town hall, and just hearing from everyone who's chatting and saying this is helpful. There's currently 500 people watching this, which is amazing. Our industry is really coming together to sort of help each other get through this. And I'm also really encouraged, like as a business owner and someone that has, a team that's growing pretty quickly, that's my number one priority, is making sure that like my team is taken care of. And I'm really thankful that we're doing fine financially and can take care of everybody. I'm yellow because just what it's done to our town and some of our friends and my wife's parents, there's some really stressful things that have been going on. For example, this morning, I have a 5-year-old son, and he woke up and he was pale as a ghost and didn't want to eat anything. He's had a heart murmur before. And so normally that's not like we've dealt with it and it's not a huge thing to worry about. Except now there's this extra layer of, oh, is it that? Was he exposed somehow? And if he was, is it safe to take him to the doctor's office? We can't just go to the doctor's office because our doctor isn't even open at the same hour. So that's just one example. And there's probably been 10 this week of things that in a normal day, I know how to deal with, and my wife and I know how to deal with, but now no one knows how to deal with anything. And that's just, I'm not used to that. I'm kind of a control freak. And so that uncertainty is what's kind of making me a little anxious. But that's way better than I was last week. Last week, I was definitely on the red side with this, just the uncertainty in the news and not having any clue what was going on. And I owe a lot of the positive progress to the School Motion team, who's been unbelievable in sort of coming together and helping us all move through this. Cool. So that is how you do red, yellow, green. I feel better, actually. And next up, we are going to go with EJ.
So I feel like I blink between green and yellow depending on the day or sometimes the hour of the day. But I will say that one of the things I've noticed about myself is I don't like to reflect much. I just like to keep going. But it's just so hard to ignore all the things that are happening around me in the community where I'm at, on social media, people saying that they're losing jobs and they're getting worried about that. And it's just weird because I think if anything, I just kept feeling this deep sense of guilt. Like I went to my local brewery here as I normally do, and they're still open. And I went in there and had like a half-hour conversation with the guy about like just how he was struggling. They had to lay off all their employees except for a few bar managers. And they're just like, hey, we're probably going to run out of beer. We can't brew any more beer here or anything like that, but we're doing these deliveries and stuff like that. Food trucks are affected. Everything's affected. They can't sell food. But they're just trying to put everything together so people could come and stop by and get takeaway food, takeaway drinks. But the guilt came when I was like, wow, that's tough, but that's great that you're trying to pull things together. He's like, yeah, what's changed for you? And I'm like, not a lot. I'm working at home. I've been working at home since, 5-6 years ago, and I'm working for School of Motion, and I got a bunch of work to do actually. So nothing's really changed there, but I feel like every single person I've talked to, something's impacting them in this deep way, and you just feel so helpless. Coming from where I'm coming from, because like nothing's really changed, and I start to feel guilty. Like, I feel like I should deserve to be affected in a bad way, because like why am I one of the lucky people that is in this situation? And I feel very grateful every single day, and I felt grateful before this, but even more so now, to just be a part of School of Motion. And one of the reasons I joined was to be a part of something bigger than myself, and that's kind of forced me to do something like this. Like, I don't know if I wasn't working for School of Motion, if I would have done a live stream by myself. Like, I'm a very introvert, extrovert kind of person, and I feel like my immediate reaction to everything going on is I want to go extreme introvert, because I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. I'm not good in times of crisis. Like, my wife is very eloquent with being very empathetic and knowing the right thing to say, and I'm terrible at it. So I've just been going through that, flashes of guilt, and just trying to do what I can to help people out. And whether that's, me doing an Instagram story with my dog, just saying, hey, who wants to ask me questions, or, whatever I can do, it's been helpful. And just, even things like supporting businesses around me, going to breweries, giving them way more money, and buying way too much beer than I need right now. But I mean, it's the only way I can feel like I can help people out, because a lot of these businesses, it's sad, like, who knows if they'll even exist when we come out of this. And that's the really, sad part of all of this.
Yeah, I wanted to just really quick call out. You said something about feeling guilty that you're in a situation a lot better than someone, say, who owns a brewery. And that's really, really common. That's something that I've heard from a lot of people in the industry. And I'm sure a lot of people on the live stream feel some version of that if they have friends. I know there's a lot of people on the School of Motion team who have friends in the service industry who are just cut off from income right now. So that's really hard. All right, Ryan Summers, you can go next, man.
Whew. I feel like my head is green and my heart is red, because I've been following this for a long time, and I can see kind of hopefully where it's going to go in terms of just the incident, like the actual pandemic. But I really do think the industry is going to change a lot after this, or during it. So I think there's some pauses in there, but right now it's just short term. Like I said at the beginning, like trying to find safe harbors for as many people, and even like outside of like motion design. Like, I know a lot of artists that, make a living off of touring or conventions, and we're just about to hit like convention season, and like we only all have so much money to kind of spread around, but trying to share around Gumroads and Patreons, and like it's really scary to see how many GoFundMe's are kind of popping up everywhere. But I'm really hoping that, not to focus too much on the after all this, but I'm hoping there'll be some positive change in terms of whether it's organizing or finding a way to kind of preemptively be prepared for the next pencils down moment, whatever it might be, whether it's health related or government related, or whatever it could be, in the micro and in the macro for the whole industry. I hope that we start looking at ways to kind of be ready for this for everyone as much as possible. So that's both green and red at the same time, I guess. But yeah, just trying to look out for as many people as possible, and really be thankful when there are good little moments too. So
awesome, thank you. All right, so now we're gonna go to the 5 brave artists who have agreed to come on and do this with us. And again, thank you all so much for sharing this stuff. So Algernon, we'll start with you. You go ahead.
I'm definitely between a yellow and red. I guess like I've been working from home, so that part hasn't changed. The red side comes in when I have a 2.5-year-old daughter with my wife, and we have to take her out of daycare just because, high risk of, transmission, all the stuff you've been hearing in the news. And the city, New York City, also is now you have to increase the amount of kids you could have in just because schools are shut down. So it was just like way too many. So we just decided to take her out and keep her home. And then it gets to red because my wife's a nurse in New York City. So she's like right in the heat of everything. And, it's weird. Like, I'm working from home, like, animating things and like making these things look cool. And then like she comes home and it's like, her stories are just like, I just feel that's where I feel guilty. You know, it's like I'm home making these cool little animations, and she's like in there like dealing like with these people. They have like a lack of proper like equipment, and like they're just like completely like stressed the whole time. So it's tough, and it's also like I was saying before, a lot of my music jobs, they're just kind of like on hiatus right now. Like they don't know what's going to happen or like when things are going to restart again. Luckily, I do have other things going on, so that's back to my yellow part of the equation. So yeah, it's just back and forth between there. Maybe a solid orange or something like that.
Right on. Thank you for sharing, man. All right, Jess Herrera, you're up.
So about a week ago, I was like really red. Like I was still in London. My whole family, like my aunties, my cousins, my sister, my mum, all saying, come home. Basically, the Australian government saying anyone who's overseas needs to get back now before we close the borders. So basically, in 2 days, I went from everything is fine to holy shit, have to get a flight and spent way too much money on a one-way flight, and got home, felt a lot safer. I reckon I was like a green when I got home. It was like my mum was so much less stressed, and I could just tell in her face. I've been quarantined in my room, actually. I haven't really been able to interact with anyone because in Australia you have to do 14 days quarantine, which has been fine for me because I also am used to working from home. But it's hard to see, like, especially over the last few days, it's now starting to go yellow when my dad has gone, told that he can only come in 3 days a week. I had 2 jobs that I was penciled in for just fall through because of this coronavirus. But money isn't really worrying me at the moment, but it was more how to keep occupied on something else. Like, I feel like my creativity has absolutely vanished after all this stress, and my body is just kind of tired. Like, this jet lag is terrible as well, but I don't know. It's a whole roller coaster of emotions. My sister can't come home because she's also a nurse. So she's in Melbourne and she's too scared to come visit the family. My mum is at risk because she's got rheumatoid arthritis, and that's why we're taking this quarantine really seriously. Just my grandparents don't think it's a problem, and they're still doing their own usual thing, and we're just like, stay inside. Like, this is really important. Like, and they're just like, no, it's fine. I'm old. It's fine. If I die, I die. And I'm like, no, that's not how it should be. So it's just a lot of running around trying to keep everyone calm, really, especially my mum. She's very emotional like me, and I just stand at the top of the stairs and let my mum just kind of blurt everything she's feeling at me, and I just kind of absorb it and go, yeah, everything's fine, everything's fine. So yeah, I'm more of a yellow at the moment, hopefully not a red soon. But yeah, that's how I'm feeling.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that, Jess. This is sort of the point of doing this is, this is the first time we've ever spoken. And when you came on the live stream, I would have had no idea that you were dealing with any of that. And I think it's important that we all know that kind of stuff is going on. So really, thank you so much for sharing. All right, Steve, you can go next.
I don't even know how to follow up, Jess. That was, I'm going to say that I'm green, and not because I have it any better than anybody else or any worse or anything of that nature. If you know me, I have a very endurance event background, and it's very much this whole like kind of embrace the suck and you deal with it. And right now, the price of admission to anything right now is this is just not fun. It's unpleasant. So we baseline that and say this is unpleasant for everybody. And I love hearing about why it's unpleasant because I think it's good for people to say those things. But what keeps me in the green is moments like this create so many opportunities for amazing things to come out of it. Look at School of Motion offering scholarships, which is great. And there are teams of people whose names we will never know working tirelessly right now to do something great in this world that may put a halt to this whole thing. Like, those are going to be our Tony Starks and Thors and Iron Man. Like, Tony Stark is Iron Man, but you guys get my point a little bit. Like, I have to stay so even keel and stay in the situation, because that's what will keep me sane and the people around me sane, and hopefully uplift everything. So that's what kind of keeps me green. If you guys ever have ran a 5K, a 10K, a marathon, you don't get to like mile 8 and feel good. You feel like, oh, this is pretty bad and terrible, and I'm running and I hate running. And if you start focusing on mile like 17, if you're running a marathon at mile 8, you're probably going to get into a really dark place. But if you're at mile 8 and you're like, all right, cool, yeah, this sucks, but you know what? I'm here, I'm doing it. I'm getting through this with everybody around me. Then when you hit that finish line, yeah, you're going to be beat up a little bit. Yeah, you went through some stuff, but you came out on the other side and there's people there with you, and you can really embrace that. So like I said, I think there's a lot of opportunity to be taken from this. TJ made a great, or EJ, oh, sorry, man. EJ made a great point earlier when he said trying to contribute to local small businesses. And I read this thing online, this is the last little note that I want to make, is if you have the means to do this, and only if you have the means, keep supporting your local boxes, your gyms, your member or climbing memberships, any of that type of stuff, because while it sucks that you can't be there now and be a part of everything, that little tribe mentality, it's going to be so much worse of when this is over if they're not there for you at all, because they weren't able to survive this. So like I said, if you have the means, please keep contributing to your community and those around you.
Awesome. Thanks, Steve. It's really good to hear, everyone's head works a different way. And it's really helpful to hear that's, how you kind of handled this. Chris, you go ahead.
Yeah. So I would say overall, definitely a shade of yellow, in terms of work, more yellow green, been, doing remote, being in a more rural area, you just by default are doing more remote work. But being able to, potentially see how other people are interacting with remote and giving them tips and things like that, makes me kind of skew a little bit more towards that yellow green in terms of the industry. On more of like kind of the family side, I would say that's a little bit more like yellow red. Because like we have an 18-month-old son, he was at daycare. We've had a couple scares where like we're getting messages and they're like someone, staff or another parent or somebody's in quarantine right now. And those like the longest 3 days, you're like, is our kid potentially been exposed to this? If we get it, who's going to watch him? Because who's going to come to our house when there's virus in it to watch our son, I have family members that have, some of those kind of underlying conditions that they kind of worry about. My sister just had twins like last December. She used to be a nurse. So like, she doesn't know if like she's going to get, kind of called in because she lives down like the Dallas area. So not a small place. So, just a little bit more on the family side, I would say it skews a little bit more, kind of towards the red. But like Steve said, even kind of like what Ryan touched on too, is I'm a little bit more optimistic as in terms of work and industry, where we'll come out on the other side.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, man.
Yeah.
All right. And finally, we have Van.
Okay. So I'd say I am kind of green, red, really red, because I went for this green situation where it's okay, we can do it, we can stay all together at home, have shifts with the kid at home, work, my husband and me, well, we can do it. I have plenty of ideas to do at home, parties, family parties, paintings, whatever, playing, learning, playing music, every day, all kind of ideas. But, and I was working from home before, and I've been planning to take some time off now to develop my business, my remote studio. And it's a very solid plan I have, and I really need time to focus on this for a while. All of a sudden, it was like, no, I can't do anything, like it's like I need to work from maybe 5 to 9 a.m. in the morning, and I'm very, very tired, and it's hard to stay, focused, and as well it's hard to stay positive during the day if you are tired all day. So I need to sleep, but I need to play, and I need to cook, and I need to do so many things at home, and we are all at home, and you are kind of a prisoner. We've been officially in Barcelona. We've been inside at home. I think now it's like 10 days. I'm not sure, but we started this before because I was not trusting anyone outside. People is like, oh no, this is just the flu. It's a regular flu. It's like, so I can't trust the neighbors saying that. Like, I don't know what you are doing outside. And so I was, my kid is, I have a nanny, but I'm taking my kid to the nanny's house now every day. So I stopped that like a week before. And then, well, we enter this lockdown mode here. And right now it's like, okay, I have no idea how to manage, how to stay positive, have enough strength to do everything. And on top of all of this, something you said, Sherry, was like, you need to stay well, healthy, without breaking any bones. And my kid is 3 years old and is jumping, and today it was like falling, like, oh my God, yeah, my heart is like bumping. Like, please, are you okay? Are you okay? Like, doctors are so busy right now. You can't go to the hospital. You just can call the doctor. I can call his doctor, but that's it. I can't go outside. Just, deliveries. There are some deliveries now, like some supermarkets, but just a few. And I don't think it's going to last more like this week. And next week we just need to go outside for shopping some food and stuff like that. But just food. and that's it. So the green time I was planning, and I was in my mind, it was, well, I can do it. I can really focus on build my project right now, my business during this time. But I can't, and I'm trying to change some things, like, okay, I'm not seeing the news before work and things like that, so I can focus just on the work. But creativity is more like everything, it's not just work. It's like you need to open your eyes in the morning and be creative in everything, in the breakfast, in the balcony, waving at your neighbors or whatever, singing a song in the balcony for them, something new every day. I don't know.
Thank you, Van. Yeah, and thank all of you for sharing that. There was a lot of really personal stuff in there, and I mean, this is the kind of thing that I think it's painful to go through it and to admit that like everything's not awesome right now. But I think that it's actually really important not to bottle that up. I've definitely been guilty of that in the past, of just pretending everything's great and doing this and thumbs up. And that's generally how I am. I'm pretty much like happy-go-lucky all the time. But with this going on, I don't think that it's helpful to just put that face on all the time. So I apologize if anyone's coming into this live stream going, wow, this is the most depressing live stream I've ever been on. But this is real. And a lot of positive things have been said. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. There's ways to manage your mental state and all of that. But I want to make sure that we're all being really honest with each other. So there's a few topics that I was hoping we could discuss. And to try and keep this structured, because there's so many of us on the live stream, why don't we go in reverse order? So we'll go Van, Chris, Steve, Jess, Algernon, and then EJ and Summers, if we have any color commentary to add, we can talk about it. And I think one thing that I'm sure a lot of people on the live stream are curious about is, how has your business been impacted by this? Like on a dollars and cents level, what has this done? And you've talked about it a little bit, but you can elaborate if you're comfortable. And you could also talk about if there are friends of yours or coworkers or freelancers you're close with that have been affected too. Like, what's the general state of motion design career right now for you? And we'll start with Van.
Okay, me again. So, well, somehow I feel like I've been saying a bit of this just now. Like the main impact for me is like I was planning for this time to build something solid, and I feel right now like I'll be out from this, I don't know, 2-3 months without nothing, you know, like I've been losing the clients, I've been losing the time I was keeping for building the project. I kind of desperate in some way, because, well, I think I'm going to find a way, you know, like I've been working, you know, early in the morning and that's it, or late at night, and try to balance the sleeping hours, the tiredness, and everything, and family life. But mainly the impact in my career is, hey, this is, yeah, can I do it through this, you know, like can I go through this I don't know, 3 months of lockdown and still keep my clients, my project development during this time? Can I don't know. I've been trying hard, but I don't know. And around me, it's like you people, you know, like all these people here is the industry for me, because I'm not really working with people in Barcelona. I'm always like working with international clients. So, you know, my life is now, it's a bit the same in that way, you know. It's I'm feeding this my industry mode with all you with all of you. So I'm, you know, trying to stay positive, and I think today is one of my hardest days since the beginning, you know. It was the first day I was feeling like, okay, I'm kind of sad, depressed, desperate. What's going on in me? You know, I need to find a way out, and I think I'm gonna do it. But, well, there's always one day when you need to break, and you can start over.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. Chris, how about you?
Yeah, so I'm a little bit in a similar boat. Like I was kind of planning on taking some time off, or at least less projects over the summer, because my goal is to completely redo my reel and my site and all that stuff. Like I said, we pulled our son out of daycare. My wife, she's actually at work today, like she still has to go in. And we pulled our son out of daycare, so I mean, I lose a lot of time. When she comes home from work, she's also working on her master's, so she has to get her homework done too. So I mean, I've mentally accepted that I will probably not work an 8-hour day for at least a month, you know, assuming that, you know, this is, you know, a shorter thing. One of the things I've kind of been, I would say, a little bit more nervous about in the last like week or so, you know, doing more of the business side of things, is, you know, I had a client that we did net 90, and it's getting close to the end of that 90-day period. Am I going to get paid? I have a new client who was my biggest contract that I've had, you know, in the last 18 months. You know, we sent a draft to the client kind of before when this kind of happened. I don't know what's going on with that. I don't know if, you know, if they already been paid and that money's kind of allocated already for artists, or kind of how that's going to work. So, you know, I figured I'd probably maybe give it another week and kind of see, but it feels a little hard, you know, going and being like, hey, am I going to get paid while, you know, the number of cases in your city is kind of skyrocketing. So feels really insensitive. So I, you know, honestly, I'm trying to figure out, you know, the kind of the balancing act between that. You know, I did.
Did we lose Chris?
Just to see if, what's that?
Oh, sorry, you froze on my end. I didn't know if we lost you or not.
Oh, sorry. So I did reach out to some of my existing clients on Monday just to, kind of see where they're at, and just even to offer if they just need to talk about stuff, kind of like this, not even, work related stuff. You just want to talk about music or movies or something like that, because it's just, pretty chaotic, obviously.
Right on. Yeah, thanks for sharing, man. So Steve, what about you? Have you felt this?
Yes, and you guys have brought up some really interesting things that I didn't even think of, and I find myself really fortunate. Like, creative block is probably a really serious thing going on with people right now, and that didn't even cross my mind until today. So it's kind of helped to hear a little bit of this stuff. But if I look at the overall impact on everything, me specifically, I'm terrible at taking time off. I always say I'm going to. Me and my buddy Reese, we always joke about it, like, oh yeah, let's take a month off and do this stuff, and then like 2 minutes later, we're all triple booked. It just never works the way that we intend for it to. Now I rolled into a week where like I had like 2 hours where I wasn't booked, and I was like, I wonder if this is where it ends. Like, is this where my career comes crashing down and burns? And these are thoughts that I would never have had before. Like, I'm fortunate enough that I've got to work with some great, amazing people, talent. So like, you just rely on being a good person. So in the interim, like, it's more or less, hey, maybe take this time to check in on some people. Like Chris had just said, it's not necessarily like you were asking for work. Like, I'm not out there saying, hey, I want to, like, let's do all this stuff. But maybe it's just like being a normal person for a little bit and saying, hey man, how you doing? Just a quick buddy check. Like, you need anything? You doing good? Just those little things, man. It helps us keep connected, because we're all locked in four walls. Like, we don't get this interaction anymore. So I'd say the impact more probably would be mentally. I think people are in a really fragile place, and rightfully so. And it's trying to let the waters kind of balance themselves back out.
Yeah, that's really a good point, Steve. And actually, when I reached out to studio owners that we're friends with at School Motion just to check on them, they were all very, very appreciative. And it's a really nice human thing to do, and also not a terrible business idea for anyone who's freelance. Jess, what about you? Is this, obviously you're in time of flux right now, moving from the UK back to Australia, but has this affected your career? Are you worried about getting booked, things like that?
So I originally was supposed to be traveling for the next 2 months. That's kind of why I moved to London, because it's really easy to go through Europe. I was going to go to Off Festival and Pictoplasma. This week that just went, I was supposed to be in the French Alps visiting a friend. I was going to go all around Europe with my friend who was going to fly up from Australia before he moved to New York, which obviously didn't happen. So I kind of had been saving for a month to know that I was going to be without work for about a month and a half. But I'm more like pissed off that I actually lost quite a lot of money from not being able to take any of those holidays. And also, like, I had only just seen the snow for the first time like 3 weeks ago, and then I couldn't go to see full on like go skiing or anything with my friend. Like, I was like so bummed. And I think for me, I wasn't too worried about the money, but then I am waiting on 2 outstanding payments, which kind of sucks. But now, since I have moved home, I'm not as worried. But then as soon as I found out that my dad might be out of work soon, I got quite worried, because also my parents have one house investment, and possibly those people might have to move out too. We don't know. And then they have to make payments on that house. And I'm like, well, can I help? Like, I'm not paying rent right now. So there's like a whole like bottleneck of just little inkling of just in the back of my mind. And then that's kind of dried up my juices of creativity, which I'm usually very positive person. And also I love being social. And it's actually kind of good that everyone wants to chat on these forums and on Slack and everything. It's kind of keeping me sane. But then also since I moved, I'm in a totally different time zone. So even working with London is kind of hard, and all my friends who I was talking to every day on like Discord are now talking while I'm asleep. And I guess for me, it's more of a mental drain than money or any of that. I'm not too worried, but I was kind of hoping to be doing some really cool stuff over the next couple of months. So yeah, what a weird time. It's just like every morning I wake up and I'm like, oh, it's a beautiful day. Oh man, what is life? What is going on?
But put a good spin on it, is there?
Yeah, I guess it's like I wish I could go back to that happy place where I was just before everything kind of went a bit weird. But I'm also very happy to be around my family because I haven't seen them in so long, and even like my grandparents have now worked out how to do Facebook video chat, so I'm being able to talk to them doing that. They're kind of pretty cool, up hip grandparents, yeah. Yeah, but just trying to stay positive, really. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you. All right, and Algernon, what about you? How has this affected your business or your prospects for the future?
So same with Chris and Jess. I have 2 outstanding payments that I've been waiting on, and I reached out to both clients the end of last week. I've been in contact with one. I'm still waiting to hear from the other. So I'm like, am I going to get paid for these things, especially now? So that's a bit of a struggle. But on the other side, I had a producer reach out to me at the end of last week, and he was like, hey, because of all this, companies are, realizing they can't go out and film stuff. So they're actually heading towards more animation and motion graphic stuff. And he's like, hey, are you going to be available? I'm like, yeah, I'm home with everyone else, so I'll be here. So whatever you need. So that's a positive thing. We'll see what happens from it. And I feel like there's this thing when you're a freelancer, when you don't have work come in and you start getting panicked, and then this random thing pops in, which seems to just always happen. And one of my friends is actually running for Congress, and he needs like all this like motion work. And he's like, yes, Algernon, are you available? I'm like, yes, I'm home with everyone else. So hit me up, whatever you need. So yeah, those are like, one thing is actually happening, one thing is in the works. So yeah, definitely pluses and minuses. The music thing, I don't know when that's gonna come back. I mean, it's gonna be a while before people start touring or people, that whole thing starts moving again. And another thing is with taking my daughter out of daycare, working from home, there were days that I didn't work and I'd use that time to like, create things. There's like a plugin I was working on, and plus other like random personal things, that's kind of like out the window. I kind of have to wait till late at night once it's quiet, everyone's all asleep, and get like 2 hours in to do on something instead of like, a full day that I had before. So yeah, it's definitely like a work-life balance readjustment that it's gonna be, I don't know, it seems like it's just gonna be changing every day depending on whatever the city or country is planning on doing with this thing. So, or however, if the virus gets, I don't know. We're just gonna have to wait and see. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing, man. I want to get Summers and EJ, I want to get your takes, but I wanted to call out something Algernon said, and I've been seeing a little bit of conversation about it in the chat, and I've actually heard this from a couple of people. So this has all been anecdotal to me, but it's really encouraging, and that is that because companies are a little bit afraid of spending too much money right now for obvious reasons, they're less likely to go do a really expensive shoot. And animation, especially the kind of animation that we do as motion designers, is generally far cheaper. So it actually could turn into more work and more opportunity. I don't want to say that that's actually like happening all over the place, but I've heard from a few different people that that's happening. So yeah, Summers, do you have any thoughts on sort of what this has done to careers, and have you talked to any freelancers or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, for the last 2 weeks, it's been nonstop. I do want to say, like, not that that's again like the single safe harbor, but I've had 3 different producers reach out saying, like, not right now, but if this keeps going, we had live action shoots for campaigns or live action shoots for reality shows that now we need animation done. Do you know people? So I don't think it's going to be an avalanche, but I do think that it is going to become. It has the potential to have like a seismic shift in terms of the way those people who would normally not approach motion graphics may start coming towards us even after this is done. So I think that's a small little positive. I was talking about this in the chat. One area that we haven't talked about that I feel really bad, that my heart breaks for, are all the artists, the animators, the designers that are getting ready to graduate right now, right? Like, this is a lot of people's graduation. And I don't know the best way to kind of like mobilize this, but I wonder if there's a way to start reaching out to schools for animation and motion design and designers, and help them just at least get some feedback, or at least get some views and some looks at what normally is like the highlight of 3 or 4 years worth of time. I'd love to be able to get more people looking at people's reels that are graduating and give them feedback, and at least just like have some sense of like what it would be like when you normally graduate and you have a kind of like final senior show or a reel presentation or something, because they're not only are they stepping into a really difficult economy right now in a difficult situation, they're also just being robbed of that kind of like final experience that I think a lot of us, if we're lucky enough to go to kind of schools, we had that, and it helps kind of like turbo boost us and give us a little bit of confidence that right now is just vanishing. So I don't know the way to do that yet, and maybe that's something we can kind of look into, but it's just as easy as like calling the school that you went to or calling a school that you wanted to go to and let them know, like, I'm more than willing to do something like this with a couple of students over the next couple of weeks, and it might make you feel better too, just a little bit of giving back. But yeah, that's who I'm thinking about a lot now too.
Awesome, thank you. And EJ, what about you?
Yeah, I'm thinking about all these companies that are going from live production shoots to animation and MoGraph. Are some of these places, some of these companies, are they doing animation or MoGraph for the very first time? And if so, like if they have a really good experience and like, actually, this is way easier than spending a ton of money on live production, does that actually bring more people in motion graphics industry in general in more demand? And that's something that you can even see in, working remotely versus working on site. It's going to be very interesting once we come out of this, what's going to happen, what things we're going to realize when we get out of it is like, actually, you know what, like if you're a studio and you're like, for the longest time, I never felt comfortable hiring someone remote, but you know what, like actually it worked way better, had a great experience. Like you have no other choice now but to work remotely. And I think a lot of studios are maybe realizing that, like, man, actually this isn't that bad. And actually it works better. So I think that even though people are going to be struggling right now, we might come out of this in a better situation to, if this ever happens again, to be in a better position for that. I think Ryan mentioned this in the chat, and it's something that I feel like I'm really thinking about right now is, the people that just went freelance. How are they getting hit right now? Are they struggling, or is it something where they're actually benefiting from this because they are freelance and they are working from home and they're equipped for it and they already have these contacts and they got all this work? And again, going back to the switching from live production to MoGraph and animation. Well, one question I'd really like to ask everyone is, one of the things that everyone told me before I went freelance is like, before you go to freelance, you need to save up 3 months, 6 months of income before you jump. And I was always like, you know what, I'm fine. But I think now, I think we're taking all that a little bit more seriously. And that leads into another thing where I was asking, I don't think a lot of freelancers actually treat themselves as actual businesses to have that backup cash to function if things dry up. And I mean, this is like the worst case scenario. So I think maybe this will shock people to actually do the responsible thing in the future and have those saved up reserves from here on out. And what that does psychologically, which I think is going to be better for everyone that's freelance, is once you have that money saved up and you're not desperate, you're not approaching clients out of desperation, but you can turn down those crappy clients or crappy projects and actually focus on, your own work. Like you might be forced to do that right now, but I've always said that it's actually a double-edged sword to take a low-paying project, because it might take way longer than you want, and it's something that's not upping your skills. And, you know, sometimes I've done this myself when I was freelance, where I take that crappy project and then some big project comes in your lap a week in and you're like, oh, I got to cancel that. So I think this whole thing, I think if we make it through this, I think everyone as a community is going to be in a way better place, way better mindset, more responsible, and way more prepared when something bad happens, whether it's a pandemic or a dry spell in your freelance life, or you get laid off.
Awesome. Thanks, DJ. I think that's a really good segue into, I think this could be the last topic that we discuss. And we've been going for an hour, and there's so much engagement in the YouTube chat. So seriously, thank you, everybody. Like, it's really awesome to hear what you're going through and your experiences. And it's really interesting how there's a lot of people that seem to be getting more work because of this. And then there's a lot of people that their work's turned off. And it's just important to realize that your experience may have no relationship to someone else's. And that's kind of one of the main reasons we're doing this. But EJ, the question you brought up is, you know, essentially the way I'm thinking of it is, how are you going to learn from this experience and maybe change some things moving forward? And the example that you gave, I think a lot of people are probably in the situation of wishing they'd had that cushion to weather this a little bit easier. That's one of the things that I feel very fortunate that we have saved. So, you know, we're not paycheck to paycheck and worried like a lot of our friends are. And that really like weighs on me. And that causes me to feel the same guilt that you were talking about feeling earlier. But I'm still kind of processing. I don't really know what other things are going to change, but I know some things are going to change. So I'm really curious. I'd love to hear from everybody, and then circle back to you, Ryan and EJ. So why don't we start with Van? And Van, is there anything that you're learning from this that you want to do differently moving forward in case this ever happens again?
Oof, it's in the future. You mean in the future, after all this pandemic just goes away? Yes, in the future, I'd like to live in some other place, which is not a flat at all. You know, I want a house with a garden, of course. And or maybe a second house, you know, in the mountains where I can go every weekend. But I need some nature, you know. And well, yeah, I don't know. I don't really know in terms of what I've been doing so far. And I have many things, you know, kind of prepared to do a jump and start doing things differently, like building my business. And I've been working in this like half of my time during the past month. So I was hoping to have this time now, and I don't have it right now. So in the future, I hope to to be doing that, you know, to still have my clients back, because I was saying no to many things to save this time for this. So I hope there is a future in my career, you know, like continuity with my clients, so I can still have time to develop what I'm doing. But one thing I like to say is that while we are having this conversation, there was a moment I was, you know, like in this red mode, and right now I kind of feeling better, you know, like seeing more light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe because this was my hardest day, you know, like, but it's amazing feeling this, like, all these different perspectives, how it can impact in the way you're seeing your daily life, you know, like usually I'm very positive during the day, but well, there should be this like deep to, you know, go up again. So thank you everyone for sharing these stories. This is really is doing something really good here.
I'm really glad to hear that, Van. I'm glad you're feeling better after this, and I am too, and I'm sure everyone, even the viewers just in the chat, are probably feeling better from getting some of this off your chest. Chris, what about you? Have you figured anything out you want to do differently moving forward?
Sure. So it still feels a little bit too early to kind of tell. I will say that when the 2008 financial crash and stuff was, that was when I was like, okay, and I don't know how many people were definitely younger during that point, but that's kind of when I was like, I really like education. I like that component. So I tried to kind of split, my career into those two buckets. So if, freelance work dries up, I can kind of count on a little bit of, adjunct and TA and stuff like that to kind of keep things afloat for a while if needed. So I would say that's probably was my biggest takeaway from that time frame. And yeah, it's a little too early to tell, but I definitely feel like I want to keep kind of growing the educational side of it. This is my first year, doing adjunct. So, but yeah, definitely what you talked about before about having that, that reserve, that 6 months of necessities, cannot stress how, important that is, when you're starting to freelance, but even once you're up and going, to just make sure you have that aside, because you never know when, something like this happens. I mean, who would have guessed that this would have caused, or potentially caused, the next recession?
Exactly. It's called a black swan event, and it's exactly what it is. You can't predict it. Steve, what about you, man?
This is such a good question that, like, on my run later, when I'm in the shower, when I lay down for bed, I'm going to come up with like 17 more answers where I was like, oh, I should have said that. I really think, for me personally, I think the two things that I really wish that if this ever happens again, or if we're in this position again, that I can do better is, one, I lack empathy. And if I could be a little better at that, I think the people in this household would probably appreciate that a little bit more. And then the other thing is, I wish I had a larger voice or a larger platform to help more people out. Like, again, you said this in the beginning, and it still kind of hit me right here. The offering scholarships for people, like, that's such an amazing thing. And me being a person of one, it's like, all right, cool. So now what can I do to help spread this out in a better way, or try to uplift people in a better way? Or what can I do to ease this burden for other people? And even if it's just like a small little amount in my little bit of community, like, I'd like to be better at that. Because right now, like, we could all say like, yeah, I wish I would have, had more savings or anything like that. But that's kind of like the I told you so a little bit right now. So I think it's, for me, if I was to look at, I wish I would have helped people with that a little bit more. Like, I don't know. For me, that feels like it's kind of like salt in the wound at this point. So probably more so of easing in other ways. That's kind of my answer.
Awesome. Thank you. What about you, Jess?
So EJ, I was one of those people that didn't have any money before I went freelance. I was that idiot. I was like, so back in London, I had a very high rental price, only because I can't live with a lot of people. So I chose to live with just one person. And I was actually lucky I had a whole house with a garden and everything. So I'm kind of sad that I had to leave that behind. Found a winner then. But I think for me now that, like, because I only went freelance 3 months ago, I've got like one month of like working full time on, and that's as much money as I have right now, because I've pretty much blended all my money that I had saved over the last 6 years of working on moving to London and traveling and stuff, which has been great for my personal growth. And I think I really needed that. I don't have any regrets. Going forward though, just like I knew that I was going to be traveling for the next 2 months, I had saved like crazy, and I was eating baked beans every day and just not eating out as often. Like, I have friends who'd always be like, let's go have a pint. And I'll be like, yeah, I'll go and have a glass of water, because I can't afford, 6-pound pints every day kind of thing. Like that 6 pounds can be saved. another thing coming out of this is now that I've moved back to Australia, and I don't actually know if I'll be able to get back to London if this keeps going, because my visa ends in December, which would be pretty crappy. That was a huge decision of mine to leave that behind. That I was always worried that I'd be really segregated over here because of the time zone and the work. And I had so much opportunity in London where everyone is in-house. And now that everyone is working from home, I'm hoping that gives me more opportunity from over here, that they get comfortable with working with people that are not normal hours. I'm really hoping that, because if I want to continue my career as a freelancer, I would have to stay in Australia, because to go any other country, I need a visa and I'd have to be working full time, but I quite like being freelance now. But also the community has been fantastic, especially that everyone's working from home. I quite like to talk a lot. I don't know if you guys can tell, but I really appreciate all these live streams, and for me, I kind of hope that they're always at different times so that I don't have to be up at like 4 a.m. every day to talk to my US friends or the UK friends. So, but yeah, well, I really hope this stuff just keeps going. That's one thing, because I do admit the Australian community is quite quiet. We had a phone call 2 days ago for the first time. There was only 4 people on it, and we're all like, where are all the people? There's so many people here. Like, where is everyone? So I'm just trying to get everyone more hyped up to, just chat. I don't know what everyone's doing over here. I actually don't know what the freelance career is like in Australia, because no one talks. I only hear about it at NodeFest, and then after that everyone's gone. It's like, where is everyone hiding? So yeah, that's my experience. So yeah.
That's really, really interesting. You've got me thinking. My gears are turning now. Algernon, what about you, man?
So yeah, I was also one of those people that didn't have anything saved when I started freelancing, and it wasn't something I did on purpose. I was working full time at a place, and they wanted my specific department to move to a different state, and I was like, no, I'm just gonna stay here. And so I was like, I guess this is a good time to start freelancing. And I mean, the first couple of months were definitely rough, but once you start doing it, it kind of becomes this thing that kind of just like rolls on and on and on, and hopefully you keep getting more clients. So one of the things that I hope would be different next time is I definitely want to, I love New York City. I've been here forever, but I definitely want a place, especially now since I have a daughter, where I can go into like a backyard, especially if there's a lockdown in the future. Just like, being able to go outside and just like sit down on a porch or something and look at trees is a lot nicer than, going outside in the city and there's still like tons of people walking around. And also, if this does happen again, hopefully like the world wakes up and realizes that, hey, we should be prepared for something like this in the future, and listen to scientists and all that good stuff. Yeah, that's where I'm at.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, right on. All right, EJ, what about you, man?
What Algernon said kind of resonates with me about, he's been living in New York City, and I'm sure a lot of people, like Jess, you moved to London for opportunities. Is this going to wake us up to, and Ryan's been talking about this forever. When we were at Blendfest, one of the big things was, Gunnar was up there and they're in Detroit. Like, when is this industry going to wake up and stop and break away from this idea that the only way you can make it in this industry is to move to an expensive ass place like LA and New York City and deal with all that mess? Like, it should not be like that, especially what we're dealing with right now. Like, if there's anything that's good that can come out of this, is that more people work remotely, more people realize, this is just not worth me being in debt. Like, Jess, your story is so heartbreaking. You spent all your money to move to London, and like, you're still you came out of it and yeah, you got better skills, but you're still broke. And it's just heartbreaking to hear stories like that. So I really hope that as an industry, we can look at the mirror and say, you know what, it doesn't have to be this way. We shouldn't have these two main hubs of LA and New York. It should not be like that. There's more important things like playing with your daughter in your backyard in a suburb somewhere in Nebraska. Okay, maybe not Nebraska, but you know what I mean. But that's one thing I would really hope that we could do. I mean, we're very fortunate. We work for School of Motion. It's completely 100% remote. People all over the world. We got someone in Hawaii, which we're all very jealous of. But like, I hope that's the future where we can see studios realize that, you know what, we can do this anywhere. We don't have to pay high rent in New York or LA or Chicago even. So that's my hope.
Preach! Wow, I can see in YouTube everyone's cheering there. That was amazing, man. Yeah, it's. I definitely think that will be one of the changes. Like remote is now, it's been proven all over the world that it works just fine. And I really hope that it makes its way into the motion design industry. And we have a podcast coming out tomorrow with a guest who will speak about that exact topic. All right, Ryan Summers, I would love to hear your thoughts, man.
So I'll piggyback on what EJ's saying, because I feel the same way, and I'm making that decision myself too. But I feel like the same way we don't have to be told where we have to work, I also feel like it breaks my heart. And it makes me angry every time one of these situations happens and we have to be pencils down, because we also don't have to be told what to work on. And it's probably the single biggest thing I get my soapbox for, but I think the talent and the skill set and what we make for people is so ephemeral and it goes away so quickly, but the work is so amazing across the industry that whether or not it's the only thing you do, or it's a blend of what you do, or you take time off to do it, I really feel like this is a good time to start thinking that you should be owning some of the effort that you're putting into all this work. Having to work for hire, having the definition of motion design be you make art for other people is heartbreaking to me, because every other industry creatively also has some sense of ownership of the work they do. And I'm not talking about owning a studio and then still being, a slave to somebody else's kind of like request for your work. But I don't know what the answer is. I don't know, if it's a tool, or if it's a psychology, or if it's just showing examples. But I think that's the big thing I want to help work on, in the future, is that when everybody tells us to pencils down, we don't have to, potentially.
Awesome. Thank you, man. I think one thing that I'm definitely taking away from this experience is just how important it is to have conversations like these with the people you work with your colleagues, with your family, even sometimes just checking in. I've gone through most of my adult life basically just being happy. Even if I'm not really happy, I just like force myself to be happy. And because of that, I'm always very like upbeat and positive. And I found that with the coronavirus and everything that's happening, I wasn't able to punch through like I normally can. And this has been really, really helpful for me. And I hope it's been helpful for everyone who's been watching this and typing in your experiences into the chat. And what I would love before we sign off is if you would just post in the comments if this was helpful, if there was anything about the format that you would change. I know I speak for Ryan and EJ that this has been really, really awesome, and we want to do more of these. So, and we want to do them in a way that it's helpful for everybody, and hopefully not always this depressing. But thank you all so much for coming on. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, EJ. Thank you, Algernon, Jess, Steve, Chris, and Van. I really appreciate you guys coming on and sharing your stories. And that is it for our first Town Hall live stream. Did we do okay, everybody? I hope so.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Thank you.